Now time for our featured speaker, an annual tradition here for King Turkey Day. Featured speaker today is Rick Brandl. He's a class of 1977 graduate from Worthington High School. Rick's here today, supported by his wife of 40 years, Bonnie Brandl, his sister, Doreen Grimius, who's a 1973 graduate of WHS, and some special friends from the class of 1977. Rick and Bonnie have two adult kids, Lucas, along with his wife Maggie, and Travis. Nowadays, the whole family makes their home in the Boulder, Colorado area. Rick is the winner of the very first King Turkey Day 10K race way back in 1980. He has been funding Worthington running scholarships for 20 years, recently donated $50,000 to build the Trojan Legacy Wall over at Trojan Field on the WHS campus that was just dedicated. The goal of this wall is to inspire others to donate to the worthy cause of expanding the number of students who can take advantage of the many extracurricular activities at School District 518. Rick is a member of the Worthington High School Athletic Hall of Fame, still holds the school record for the 3,200-meter race in track and field. Today, Rick is the Vice President of America's Service for Medtronic, a $30 billion medical equipment company based in the Twin Cities. In his spare time, he runs, bikes, competes in volleyball, spends time with family, including his new granddaughter, Maisie. Please join me in welcoming the 2023 King Turkey Day featured speaker, Rick Brandl.
Thank you, Jamie. On the way up here, a little boy asked me what time the chicken race starts. So there's a lot of pressure on me I know he's going to remember 20 years from now who won the chicken race, but hopefully he'll remember something of what I said. So I'm looking forward to another big day in Worthington. On Thursday night, I saw my first cross-country meet, 47 years for Worthington. Last night, had the honor of helping launch the Trojan Legacy Wall at Trojan Field. It's a huge honor to be here in Worthington and to be on the speakers list given the people that have come before me, including Amy herself. That said, people from Worthington can accomplish anything. This is a great place to call home. I've lived in 11 cities, 7 states, and 2 countries, and I consider Worthington to be my home and foundation. I lived here in junior high, high school, and my first year of college at a place that was called Worthington Community College. Everything has a new name, so if I get some of the old names, translate for your kids, okay? I continued my education at Concordia College in Moorhead and the University of Chicago Graduate School of Business. I try to come here every year, and especially for giving away the distance running scholarships. Today, I will talk about what Worthington has meant to me, especially the extracurricular activities that have changed the course of my life. My father was a 30-year federal meat inspector, and we moved a lot. In 7th grade, I learned we're moving from Manitowoc, Wisconsin to St. Cloud, Minnesota. Okay, I have no idea where that is. A week later, he said there was a mistake. We're moving to Worthington. Dad was a meat inspector at, I guess it's now called JBS Pork, and some other sites in the area. We lived at 1943 Driftwood Avenue in the middle of Mudhole Bay, which I guess now has a cool name called Sunset Bay. But trust me, you could catch a lot of bullheads there. It was great place to grow up. 7th grade is a tough time to move. Seeing the cross-country meet on Thursday night, I saw the 7th grade boys running, and I was thinking of my first race in cross-country in Manitowoc. You had to run across a river that was 1.5 feet deep, and of course I fell on my face and practically had to swim across the river. So I arrived here in the middle of puberty. Despite how amazingly awkward I was and my voice changing every 3 seconds, and being a Packer fan on top of that, well, you had Chuck Foreman last year, so consider me a diversity candidate for this year, okay? It felt like home right away, and people accepted me. During my first week in town, I went fishing on the grade by Mudhole Bay with no idea what I was doing. On a cane pole and a random lure, I caught a 4-pound smallmouth bass. I had no idea what it was. It broke my pole in half, And I walked down to the Whitecore's house. So there's Jim Sr. and Jim Jr. was in my class. And I just wanted to mention Jim because Jim Sr. just passed away in July, and I know he was heavily involved in King Turkey Day for many decades. What a beautiful city this is. I've spent hundreds of hours fishing with various people, the Baumgarns, Tellenhusens, Fuyans, and playing a lot of tennis with my friend Joe Rakers, who's here today. We only spent 20% of the time arguing whether it was in or out, right, Joe? So, okay. I've run around the lake a zillion times, and it's still one of the most scenic places I've ever seen in my life. Yesterday, I got to bike around the city. Thank you, Troy Peterson, for setting up a bike for me. There are memories at every park, at every intersection. Jamie Salinas, who just introduced me, called me, and I stopped my bike, and I was looking at this small pond at the golf course, and I was thinking, I used to illegally dive into that pond to get free golf balls. I used to be on that course. I'd play a hole or two, illegally, of course, because I couldn't afford to, play golf, actually. But I had some fun times there, too, because that's where we practice cross country. My summers were spent farming, mainly baling hay, a job which no longer exists for middle school kids. Detasseling corn, another job which no longer exists for middle school kids. This was very important in developing a work ethic in junior high. Through my scholarship work in Worthington, I see kids who do school, get great grades, do extracurriculars, and somehow hold down a part-time job. This is a hard-working city. This doesn't happen everywhere. People are so specialized these days. In 8th grade, I was invited to a National Honor Society event. One of my teachers from 7th grade came up to me and said, "Rick, I expected you to be here." The comment really shocked me. I never saw that in myself. As I moved through the rest of my school time here, I became interested in being a good student with no memory of pushing myself before that. My siblings and I are the first generation of our family to ever attend college. All of you teachers, coaches, administrators out there, you are signal emitting devices. You are having an impact. As a student, I may not remember your lesson plan, but a comment here or there will change a life. When I was growing up, I was not well traveled, to say the least. At age 10, my father was literally never more than 10 miles from where he was born. At age 10, I was never more than 100 miles from where I was born. But I remember in 1976, Larry Peterson, my track and cross country coach, chemistry teacher, and great friend, standing right there, showed me this niche running magazine called Track and Field News. And there was an article about this guy named Lasse Viren, a famous runner at the time, who lived in this really remote place, at least in my mind, called Finland. I became interested in the culture there, researched it, was able to travel there a couple times. And fast forward 20 plus years, it turns out in 1999, a Finnish company bought the company I worked for, and the seed that Larry had planted led me to move to Finland with my family for an amazing year of our lives. At age 10, my kids have lived overseas and have been over 10,000 miles from home. Ironically, Lasse Viren, he was a 4-time Olympic champion, was now working in the Finnish parliament literally right across the street from our apartment. It's a small world. By the way, Larry, I don't remember a single thing from chemistry, but I remember that, so, okay. I had a ton of fun doing extracurriculars such as cross-country, basketball, and track throughout high school. I had great teammates, coaches, and competitors. This led to my senior year at the 1976 state cross-country meet in the large school classification. I ran 100 miles a week that summer. People can outrun me, but they were not going to outwork me. The night before the meet, the state rankings came out. I wasn't even in the top 10. Worthington did not rate as a serious sports destination, and only big school runners were rated, including, believe it or not, the other 7 regional winners. I was furious given the season I had had so far. On the way to the meet, our coach, Rich Adell, who just passed away in May, and a great friend of mine, said in a serious tone, not wanting to put too much pressure on me, said, "Rick, I'd like to see you in the top 10 today." I think my exact response was, "Screw that, I'm here to win." I would love to say there was a fairy tale ending and that I won, but I got fourth. However, I was in the race to the very end and just got beat by 3 better runners on the day. My friend and local arch rival, Mark Zinnel from Slayton, won the small school classification that day, so the Region 2 made a big showing. That was the singular moment when I realized I could do anything despite being from a small town. Looking back, one of the most important days in my life because it increased my confidence in everything ever since. Due to this hard-working community, I developed a work ethic I am proud of. Between high school and college, I worked as a factory employee at Firestone Retread, another job which, by the way, no longer exists. Sometimes I went too far with my work ethic. I remember we worked at Firestone starting 5 a.m. Friday morning so we could have a longer weekend. I came home Thursday night, went to bed at 6 o'clock after a hot 10-hour day of retreading tires. I woke up 14 hours later, mortified they were going to fire me because I didn't make it into work that day. I got in my dad's car and backed out of the driveway like a bat out of hell. I could see he was screaming at me, but I made an instant decision. I couldn't tell what he was saying. I made an instant decision to drive to work. My dad would eventually forgive me, but I couldn't lose my job. I got to Firestone 4 fast miles later. Luckily, there weren't many police around that day. There was no one there. I drove home, and on the way back, I realized I saw a friend out biking, and I stopped. I said, "Why aren't you at work?" And he said, after much discussion and me being very stubborn, I realized it was still 8 p.m. Thursday night and not 8 a.m. Friday morning. Needless to say, driving the car back into the garage was a humbling experience. My dad's words were simple: "I appreciate you want to keep your job, but you are also an idiot." There might have been another word before idiot even. I can still see the smile on his face. I also owe Worthington for planting the seeds for my healthcare career, and anything I can give back to Worthington today is a result of that. When I was 16, I started working at what I believe was called Lakeshore Nursing Home, now South Shore Care Center. My mother was the activities director there and got me one of the best jobs I've ever had in my life. First of all, it's a great place to meet area high school girls since 90% of the nursing assistants were girls. More importantly, it was my first job in healthcare. This lit my fire for my career. My initial goal was to be a healthcare administrator, and that's why I went to Concordia. Today, after 30 years in the healthcare world, I am proud to work at Medtronic, one of the largest medical equipment companies in the world. Being from Worthington taught me to be persistent as well as hardworking. The thing I am most proud of is that at age 62, just 2 years ago, I believe I became the oldest person ever promoted to VP in Medtronic. I lead the team that does technical service all around the world. Medtronic has impacted millions of lives via the mission of alleviating pain, restoring health, and extending life. The people it has impacted, including many relatives and friends, and I know people in this audience that I talked to today. For example, we have 3 pacemakers keeping my family alive right now. My mother had one for much of her life. I have no doubt I'll need one myself someday. That's just the way Brandl men are wired. To this day, I have a policy of never apologizing for the work ethic that growing up in Worthington has given me. Recently, I gave out a significant award to one of my employees in Brazil who had worked some tremendous hours installing 2 robotic systems in a week to allow surgeries to happen on a Monday morning. He reminded me of a Worthington person: just do what it takes. To my surprise, he got pushback from some of his colleagues that was not the right thing to do. We should not reward people who are hardly sleeping and still getting the job done. Just because someone is not up to your standards is not a reason to lower them to make someone else feel comfortable. For the last 20 years, I've been able to contribute to the Lambert Brandl Distance Running Scholarships in honor of my father, who is a great Trojan fan, like many of you parents out there today. This allows me to honor a couple people a year who excel in both classroom and extracurriculars in each senior class, and these people are going on to have huge impacts in the world. For the awards wall, which I've been working on with John Landgard and Josh Dale and team, the biggest question I get is, why would you support your high school, which is tax-based, versus what most people do is contribute to college funds? It is simple. The people who need it are right here in Worthington. My family was able to pay for the basics and nothing more. Luckily, we did not have club sports in those days, since I would not have been able to participate. Many families will not be able to participate without you. Thanks for all of you who have bought, already invested in this. We've already raised over $75,000 in addition to the building it that I put in. Please consider buying a brick. There are plenty of kids who want to be involved in extracurriculars, and their lives, and they cannot imagine how their lives would change, just as I could not imagine in 1977 how these seeds that were planted here would impact mine. In closing, Worthington is a great place to call home, and this is a place I owe so much to. I am very lucky to have ended up in Worthington in the 70s. Nothing against St. Cloud and a bigger city, but I feel my life would have been radically different had I moved there. You can do anything you want with Worthington as your foundation. Thank you.
2023 featured speaker Rick Brandl. Thank you. All right, it's time now for the presentation of the kissing turkey. We got Paycheck, we've got Ruby Begonia, and we've got the kisser. So come on, Rick, come on over here. Rocco, we're not done with you yet.
I thought this was a joke.
No, it is not a joke. Yeah, give the kisser a good old smooch. Hey!
Is that for good luck?
That's merely for your benefit.